In this episode, I talked to Ryan Martin. He's a pretty cool guy. He biked across Canada. The way that I stumbled across him was my friend Blake Lotes, who a lot of you may know as a Lifestyle Chase alumni from our mental health episode. Blake Lotes is an advocate for mental health, and it's because of that she knew who Ryan Martin was. Ryan Martin works for an organization called jack.org, which is an amazing organization which spreads awareness to youth about mental health and the ability to talk about it and make the conversation not such a daunting thing and just normalize it. Make it so that everybody has stuff that they work through. Everybody does. So the more comfortable you are talking about it, the more attainable it feels to go and seek help or start more conversations. Sometimes it's just about getting better at your communication with your friends and your family, being more open, equipping them with the tools to support you. So it's a really good episode, and I hope you listen to it, and I hope you share it, and thank you for your support. Welcome to the Lifestyle Chase, Season 2. This podcast features high performers who have found a way to live their best life while balancing their health, wellness, friends, and family. I'm your host, Chris Little. Let's get started. The Lifestyle Chase is brought to you by Yeg Fitness. Yeg Fitness is Edmonton, Alberta, Canada's healthy lifestyle community, creating and supporting active living for all. Check them out online at yegfitness.ca and on social media at Yeg Fitness. So welcome to episode 84 of The Lifestyle Chase. I am joined by Ryan Martin. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm glad we figured out the timing with the time zones.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm curious about your meditation routine. Like, what's that all about? Like, take me through that a little bit.
This morning when I said it went long.
Yeah.
So meditation for me was I started kind of a couple of years ago out of kind of like desperation to like start like feeling better, and never really got into it because in hindsight now I kind of realized that I was putting like so much expectation on like to like feel better. This is gonna make me feel better. It's gonna make me feel better. And so I actually stopped doing it for a while, and then slowly started getting back into it. I kind of set a goal that I wanted to do like morning and nightly routines, like as soon as I wake up and then right before I go to bed. And I started doing like, okay, let's just do 10 minutes before, and just think of it as like kind of like a maintenance thing. Like just I'm gonna do it to like in the morning to think about the day, just kind of like mindless meditation, and then at night I'm just gonna do it to like unwind without any kind of goal. And then I started like feeling like, okay, this is kind of nice. Like it's just kind of a nice thing to do to kind of get focused type of thing. And my morning and nightly routines have just like really evolved into something like I'm just absolutely like so excited about and like and so happy with right now. So I mean, even this morning, like I kind of do like I just like kind of talk to myself really. So close my eyes and I don't even set the timer anymore. And I have like 15 kind of words or phrases that I like say to myself out loud and repeat and like really try to like feel and embrace. So it's like, I am Ryan Martin. I'm present. I'm confident. I'm calm. I'm courageous. I'm swagger. I'm big. I'm tall. I'm love. I am loved. I'm truth. I'm me. I'm growing. I'm evolving. And say it out loud and like take like 20, 30 minutes to do it. It's just like the most, it's just like filling myself up with that good fuel for the day. And then it's nice to like do that at the end of the day and get relaxed before bed. So that's kind of my routine. I guess it's a type of meditation. Whatever meditation is, there's so many ways, right? But I've been doing it for like a month and a half now. I've literally had the best month and a half mental health wise ever. And so it's not like it's some special potion or magic potion, but it's just like kind of building that kind of foundation inside of me to just be kind of present and full and kind of feel full. So it's great. It's honestly incredible.
That's super cool to be able to talk about that on the podcast because I think a lot of people's reluctance to take that time to just slow down is that they have these expectations. They're like, "Oh, well, meditation. Well, I saw somebody do it on YouTube and meditation looks like you need some special candles and like some script." And it's just like, no, like it can literally be you sitting in your house saying nice things about yourself for 15 minutes. Like that's all it takes sometimes. And like
Yeah.
I found that if I start the day kind of slower with like some time for self-reflection and I think about like the positive things in my life and I think about the most positive way to see myself, then it frames my day a lot better than if I just jump into it and
Mm.
like don't even think about anything. So the more
Mm.
people that hear us talking about it, the braver they'll be to take care of themselves, I think. So that's good.
I agree. Yeah, and like the whole gratitude thing, like I do that three things write down before bed about what I'm grateful for. And like again, that's just like one thing. It's just not like it's not gonna be like the thing for me that makes me feel good all the time. And I
Yeah.
don't feel good all the time. But it's just one thing that I do that kind of just, sets me up for that kind of success, mentally, whatever. Um, yeah, it's not like it's not like a totally life changing thing, but it's just a thing to do that adds to the kind of, stability and like kind of mental well being.
So let's say we take a time machine back 7 years ago and you get some email from me or like a social media message, and I'm like, hey man, want to be on a podcast? First of all, what would your reaction be? And secondly, what would your morning routine be at that time in your life 7 years ago?
Wow. I don't think I would have anything like that interesting to talk about, really. From like a mental, kind of emotional, personal side, I would feel nothing like this kind of in depth and yeah, I feel like it'd be like surface level. And honestly, my morning routine would be just hoping to like feel good that day, I guess. Like it wouldn't be like actually doing the work to feel good. It would just be like, all right, like I wake up, check my phone, like hopefully that like for some reason I check the score and like look at some sports and it makes me feel good. And if it doesn't, okay, like what's the next thing? I'm kind of just like looking. And it was kind of just just hoping kind of thing. But I think the difference now is like I'm just doing the work to feel good. It's not like just like hoping and kind of looking for it. Um, yeah, so I think that'd be kind of the big difference. Yeah, like that honestly that feels like a different like lifetime, like different life, back then. Like I was not thinking this deeply about anything like this. Like I was really just kind of living on like the surface level, yeah, like yeah. Which makes me grateful for like the stuff that we're talking about and I'm working on right now.
Well, it's really cool because sometimes we forget that there's people that look up to each one of us in some way, and it's just like we forget who we used to be. You know,
Mm,
we don't take that time to look back at how our day used to be nothing like what it is today, and how the people that might look up to us today might be having the day that we were having like 7 years ago. And
mm,
it can be in all terms of wellness. Like it can be like how fit you are, how happy you are, how lean you are, how strong you are, all
mm,
these different things. And everybody starts somewhere. But the more that we can talk about like where we started off before, the more I guess just attainable it is for some people that are just having a really, really shitty day. So
yeah.
7 years
I,
ago,
I
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I mean, like, I don't want to like make it come across that like, I'm like totally good and like found myself and had the kind of yeah, like totally enlightened. Like, not even close. It's just I think now the only difference for me is like I'm just much more aware of everything, and I'm like feeling like I'm kind of getting towards. I'm working towards being smarter about things and really like believing that like I do love myself and I feel good about myself, and I love who I am. But like that's just been the past couple of months because I've like really trying to like invest in this work to like really feel that and realize that. And so I'm never gonna like get to a place that's like totally, stable. I don't think that happens, but it's just being aware of like doing the work, where the kind of problem was, what the problem was, and now just being aware of it and just putting in the work every single day to get to it, to just keep working. Never, not to get somewhere, not to get to a certain place, but to just keep working in the direction I want to go. And that's the only difference for me right now, is just knowing the work that I want to do and feeling like it's a bit smarter, not just out of desperation.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to put it. And a nice reminder for everybody is like, if you line up all the people that you interact with on a day-to-day basis, and you look at the strong people and you look at the weak people, like, and weak is a relative term because it's just in terms of like maybe they're sad more often or something like that. But it's just when it comes down to it, you're you're having these assessments of people based on what you think they are feeling. And more often than not, it's not like a fully thorough assessment. Like, you could look at a person that looks like they're happy all the time, and it could be that you are not making a thorough enough assessment. So when we look at ourselves, and no matter what we're going through, and we're thinking like, I'm not perfect, I still have work to do, I strongly believe that everybody that listens to this podcast, really, they know they're not perfect. They're going to tell us that they're not perfect. They have work to do. No matter what our assessment of them is, no matter how high on the pedestal we put them, everybody has work to do. And being able to talk about that openly and genuinely and authentically is probably one of the healthiest things that we can do, which is great. It's great that we have this chance that we get to share our
Mm.
talks, and I get to talk to you about like all the things, all the work that you put in. Um, as far
So
as like, oh,
what are you working towards,
for me,
and
I
where are you?
I like to dream big. Like, I think if we went in a time machine 7 years ago, I didn't dream big. I didn't dream big at all. I looked at other people that were already doing things, and I was like, well, I can't do that because they're doing it and they have so many more talents than I do. And now I just like, it was probably 10 months ago, I just decided to randomly paint a picture. And so I painted a picture of like a tree, but it had like sun coming onto it. And my whole thought was like, kind of, because I make jokes. I talk about how I'm like a hippy dippy personal trainer because I go so much into like the mindset thing, and I talk about life, and I think it's important that my clients are happy, like not just with their body but
Mm.
just mentally as well. But
That's awesome.
I was painting this tree, and then when I was done, I was thinking, okay, I need like one word to really focus on. And I decided the word that I was going to focus on was abundance. But I'm
Cool.
also in my like business approach, or just like sustainability within the personal training industry. It's just like, I don't look at the money that I accumulate. I look at like the experience and the connection that I accumulate and go out from there. And so abundance is in like the quality of the relationships in my life. And so like
Mm.
when I wake up in the morning, like my biggest focus is like, am I making quality connections with the people that I care about? So that means like, am I saying good morning? Am I saying good night? Am I surrounded by these people in where I go? Like, if I go to a place and it feels empty and there's not a quality connection with the people there, why am I there? I ask myself that question more often, because
Mm.
if the places that you go make you feel empty, or if you do not have a connection with those people, that can be a detriment to your health. Like, I've been
Yeah.
listening to the Brene Brown audiobook.
Nice.
Trying to remember what the title was, but it was one of the newest ones. And she talks about the importance of connection in your life. And so like, yes, we can have financial goals and stuff, but if we actually focus more on like the source of our happiness in life, then everything else will kind of work out. So like, yeah, I've prioritized people huge. Like one of my favorite phrases lately has been people first. So
Mm.
that's where my head's at. Like it's not every day is going to be perfect. Not every day is going to be a happy day, but when you equip yourself with like this community of people, or if you really get to know and really work on your communication skills with the people that really matter to you, your quality of life improves. And at least that's my perspective on things.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think it's, and I'm not saying that you don't do this, um, but I'm starting to realize like it also has there has to be a focus on like ourselves, like in like what do we think about ourselves, and like not are we happy with ourselves, but are we like okay with ourselves, and do we like believe in ourselves? Because I'm starting to see like if I truly am okay with who I am and comfortable and who I have been and okay with that and who I am right now and who I will be and comfortable with that, then I'm gonna be able to just be I'm gonna love more. Like because I love myself, I'm gonna be able to love other people more and I'm gonna build those strong connections and then I'm gonna feel that love back type of thing. And so my kind of mindset is like I'm gonna focus on myself, which is what I try to do in my thing in my morning and nightly routine is like I'm gonna just I like literally like I like to get like full on preacher mode. Like I'm like I love myself. I am confident. I can do anything. I'm brilliant. I am Steve Jobs. I am Bill Gates. I'm Elon Musk. They're in me. Like I have them. I have their intelligence, and I have my intelligence, and I'm calm. I'm always calm. You know, whatever. I'm big. I'm tall. I can see the perspective. I'm looking down at all these little freaking problems in my life, and they're nothing. The only thing that matters is me and like myself and the people in my lives and what I want to do in my life, which is like be my truth, live my truth, be okay with me, and love other people that I care about, and make an impact. Like, and that's what. And then like when I think about like I am tall, like I just see all these freaking stupid things, like stressed about I have no vacation days like already for next year. I'm like, it's such a small problem. But like I'm gonna take this big kind of bird's eye view perspective and like what's actually important. And so stuff that like you're talking about and I'm talking about is like ourselves, our connections, our relationships, and like understanding that like there's a good chance that like my my salary is not gonna make me feel good with myself. It may at times, but that's probably just gonna be like boosting my ego. But like truly like the deep down core of how you feel and think about yourself is for me like the absolute most important part because then it just radiates to other parts of your life. So that's just kind of my expansion, I guess, on your point.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And like the stuff that you talk about with your routine about how you like focus on yourself, like I do that too. Like for me, some points that I have to like really hammer home to myself is like, I have to wake up in the morning and be like, hey, I deserve love. I deserve nice things. I deserve to be successful, to feel successful. I am strong. Like all those things, I won't lie. I have to do that. I have to say that. If somebody thinks
Mm,
that I have strong characteristics, I had to tell myself that. And I might not admit it like in a conversation, but just on my own podcast, sure, I'll be open. I have to do that.
mm,
Um,
yeah.
with our little time machine we're using here, 7 years ago, what did you do for work? Like what was your life like? Like what did you do for fun? Where did you live? All those fun things.
Yeah, so I'm from like Southern Ontario. So 7 years ago, I'm 25. I was 18, and I was just in first year university at Wilfrid Laurier University. Um, got into like the program of my dreams and business and living with my best friends and honestly like things are going fine. Like I was doing fine at school. I had like great friendships and having fun and partying and like playing intramural sports and all that kind of stuff. And overall things were fine. But like I realize now that like I was definitely going through like just some like there was this deeper like pain going on and and feeling yeah, like I wasn't aware of like what was going on deeper because when I got into university, that was the start of me like really starting to experience these like periods of depression. And um, I just thought it was like I'm not confident, I'm weak, I'm insecure, low self esteem. Like I can't just like feel good all the time because I'm not confident. Like I'm not weak, and I was just constantly looking for like these like answers to like feel full and feel good about myself. So like I for a while was like I want to like live like totally self-sustained like in the forest and like just I thought like that would make me feel good and like fill this void that I like was feeling inside me. So it was just kind of this lack of awareness. Um, but yeah, that was kind of the beginning for me like of like some like serious mental health uh challenges that just kind of got worse and worse and worse the next like few years. Um, but yeah, I was just like I was very normal like outside of that. Like yeah, very normal. Great friends, great family. But there was this like kind of deeper struggle that was going on that I didn't really understand what it was until I look back on it now and see that it was this like, deeper pain, I guess.
So we talked a whole bunch about self-awareness and how like helpful that is just in general. Did you find that you made excuses towards getting better self-awareness during that time in your life?
I didn't even know what it was. I didn't even know what self awareness was. Like I literally would look up things like how to be okay with or how to deal with loneliness because I thought those problems like loneliness and whatever was the problem. And I think about that as like a fairly surface level issue. It's like you can't deal with loneliness. Well, why can't you deal with loneliness? What's what's deeper there? Well, maybe it's because you're alone with your thoughts more. And then what kind of thoughts are you having? Well, there's a lot of these like dark negative thoughts happening, and like just kind of taking it deeper. And I just didn't realize that there was like a deeper part of the loneliness type of thing. And so I didn't even know what awareness was. And honestly, I don't even have any sort of like I don't feel any sort of judgment towards like my younger self because it's a process. Like you just can't learn about awareness and like fully believe it and understand it or whatever like overnight. And so for me, it's just like that was just a part of the journey. And now I'm here and I'm more aware, but it's only going to continue to grow. And 7 years from now, it would be funny, if we were to have this conversation and be like, what's changed? And I don't know, but I'm sure it's going to be kind of funny to think about where I was, right now when I look back 7 years ahead. And so, yeah, like I don't have any judgment or shame or whatever that I wasn't aware because honestly, I didn't even know what awareness was.
That
Even if you like
totally,
read about it, like,
yeah,
truly,
that
truly like feeling it. It's like it's such a it's an evolving kind of thing that we think about like self awareness and constantly changing, but it doesn't happen overnight, and it's still growing and evolving for me. So
that makes a lot of sense because yeah, it's just you don't know what you don't know.
mhm.
In the time that has passed, like as you progress and get better throughout all things, what were the three biggest pieces to the puzzle in getting you from there to now?
um, mm, acceptance. So I talk about that a lot. Is truly like deeply accepting like what is going on, like these feelings, this pain. This is not just like a little thing. Like there's something going on here, and I'm really accepting that. Like I had to accept that like I was had like fairly serious anxiety and depression, and truly accepting that over and over and over again. Like it's not like for me it was I wake up one morning or night and I have a really bad couple of days. I'm like okay, I do have anxiety. And, like I accept it. Okay, but that doesn't it doesn't just like turn on the switch that you truly like feel like this is kind of okay and like this is okay that I have this. It took a lot of time for me to really feel like okay, I accept that I feel these things at certain times and that's not who I am. It doesn't define me, but I feel them and that's okay. And when I feel them, that's fine. Just use my tools, bounce back, talk about how I'm feeling, do whatever I need to do, like all these tools that, I'm sure you have too, to just kind of recover and bounce back. And then I'll feel I'll feel different, and that's how I'm feeling then. But I'm not going to be defined by this, and accepting that like this is just kind of what happens, and I'm not going to invest any more like emotional kind of attachment to it. It's just like, okay, this is what's going on. And for me, that like took away a lot of like the struggle and like the pain of like resisting how I was feeling and feeling like really really weak about, like I would hang out with my closest friends on like a full weekend. I'd go home on a Sunday night after like staying up late and like drinking. I'd be absolutely depressed and like sometimes suicidal. Like it would get so extreme, and like I would feel so weak and feel so like I feel ridiculous. I'm feeling that way. Um, but then realizing what's changed is like accepting when that's happening. Be like, okay, I've had a couple of late nights. This is what's happened. I need to just do what I got to do right now. I will bounce back, and that's okay. This is just what happened. It's no big deal. And it's no more than that. It's not, this is depression and I'm depressed. I have depression. It's just, I'm feeling this way. Good, bad, whatever. These are the thoughts I'm having. And I'm going to just do what I have to do and kind of just wait it out and be patient. So that's like kind of the acceptance piece. I think a huge piece is like this, like we talk about like having a toolbox. And I think it's, the idea of having a toolbox is like extremely like undervalued, I feel, or like underappreciated sometimes. Because like the first thing my therapist said to me the very first time I went to get help, she's like, Ryan, like think of mental health and like managing mental health as like having a toolbox and you have all these strategies. And I completely forgot about it that she said that. And then like 5 years later, after I got like diagnosed with like anxiety, depression, bipolar, like it, and I started realizing that like all these tools, having specific times and places and moods to use them, and having as many tools as possible was like is like the most important thing for me. Well, like one of the most important things for me. So like that realization was huge because when I start feeling bad, it's not. It took time to realize this, but okay, I'm feeling this way. What do I have to do now? And what are the tools? If I'm feeling depressed, what are my tools for the situation? Telling someone how I'm feeling, getting a good sleep, having an ice cream cone, like watching The Office, like whatever it is. What are my tools for this specific situation so I can ride it out and feel better? And it gives me a lot of confidence that when I start feeling a bad, like at a kind of a, when I don't feel well, I have things to kind of get me through it. And like just gives me so much confidence to know that I've been through this. I have the tools. I'm going to learn more tools. I'll always learn more tools, but like I have these to kind of help me. And that's absolutely huge. So acceptance, the toolbox, and I think a big one would be like patience. And so just kind of expand on like having tools. Like if I do something, if I'm not feeling well and I do something and I do another thing, like trying to kind of feel better, it's like really appreciating the fact that this may not change overnight. But if I keep doing and using those tools, making those good decisions for me and my health, things will bounce back. Like there's a really good chance they will in my situation. And so being patient and confident that if I stick to that plan with these tools, meditating every day or like whatever it is, working out, whatever, things will kind of become stable again eventually. But I have to believe that I need to stick to this and not expect that things are going to change right away. Yeah, so I mean, there's so many things. Like that question is such a big question, but I'd say those are some of the biggest pieces. Yeah, and like for the acceptance part, is like appreciating or accepting that like my friends, my family, my therapist, whoever, my doctor can only like take me so far. And really, it's going to come down to me like just absolutely owning this 110%, because every morning it's going to be me that wakes up with those thoughts and me that goes to bed with those thoughts in my mind, and throughout the day and on the weekend, Sunday night, whatever it is, like that's in my head, that's me. And all these other people are outside of me. So they can only help me so much. So I got to own this. I got to be proactive because I'm the only one with like the real power here. I have control. I have the ability to change things and realizing that, because we can learn so much in therapy. We can do CBT, DBT, whatever, talk therapy, but the stuff we learn and the stuff we talk about, like it's our job to bring that back and work on it and like work on ourselves, work, because that's when the change happens, not just like one conversation. So yeah, that's why I say that's everything.
That was a really good way to articulate it, and like I'm glad that you talk about it that way with it with it being that we have this circle of people that can help us, but we are the ones with the power, and actually like using that word, like saying, hey, like you have power, because I think when people are feeling dark thoughts, they're forgetting like that they have power. And that kind of that goes with like people who are goal oriented, people who like, I started a podcast, and it could be a shitty podcast, it could be a great podcast, but the only one that's going to make that difference is me, you know? Like
Hmm.
me having a bunch of guests won't make it a great podcast. Me genuinely thinking that I have something to offer to the world will make it a great podcast. And it's like
Mm.
not to say that it's better than anything else. It's just self-belief and that confidence that a person can instill in themselves is like it's paramount. Like you cannot find anything that is more effective than our thoughts of ourself, you know?
Mm. I completely agree. Because yeah, I mean that goes back to what we talked about earlier. It's like I want to start with myself and how I think, how I feel, and that's gonna have radiating effects on a lot of different areas of my life. And that's something I'm just realizing now. Like it's just because if I learn all these tools, the way I think about it is this. This has been like a huge realization. We have all these tools, but most of them are reactive. I'm feeling a certain way that I don't like, so I'm going to do this tool. I'm going to do this tool because I'm feeling anxious right now. I'm going to do this tool because I'm feeling down and depressive or suicidal or irritable or whatever. And I have this tool once I feel it. But what's happening before that? What are we doing proactively the entire time that's building that foundation that we have that foundation throughout all those moods? And so what's the proactive side? And I think the proactive side of things and doing the work before is working on yourself, like who you are, believing in yourself, having that confidence and courage and really believing it. And I think that gives us a lot of stability as we move through all those moods. And then when we start feeling a certain way, then we have the reactive tools. But I still think there's a lot of work to be done, throughout the entire process before you feel a certain way. And while you're feeling good, still do the work. It's always happening, and I think that's so important because if we're reactive, it's only going to take us so far. There needs to be work being done the whole time, behind the scenes, that gives us that foundation. And as we move through all these moods that may be good or bad, but there needs to be that kind of core work happening all the time. And it's on ourselves. Like it's who am I? And again, this is just how I think about it, but who am I? Like, am I okay with that? Am I strong? Am I intelligent? And like just trying to believe that. And I think that's just so incredibly important. And that's been a big realization. There's a difference between proactive tools and reactive tools.
Yeah.
Like meditating every day, no matter how you're feeling, I think is proactive. But meditating when you're feeling anxious, just when you're anxious, that's reactive. And then may work well, but like there's still an importance on the work you're doing all the time, not just the reactive tools.
That's so true. And like people can apply that to anything. Like you can apply that to shoulder mobility. You can apply that to your nutrition. Like
Stretching.
yeah, absolutely. It's so cool.
Yeah.
With Mind Cycle, what inspired you to start that project? What was the moment when you had the light bulb idea to be like, this is what I'm gonna do?
Yeah, so Mind Cycle, yeah, I mean, just for a little bit of background, it was kind of my project to bike across Canada for mental health. Um, Cycle. Sometimes people might say like people think motorcycle. I was like, no, it wasn't that easy. Um, so yeah, it was my kind of bike ride across Canada to like share my story and get people talking about mental health. And I think for me, it was getting to a point where like I got diagnosed with like anxiety, depression. I had a huge breakdown, and I told everyone in my life because I just wanted people to know, and got so much love and support and everything. And then like a month later, I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder, like bipolar type 2. And it just like totally reset me back to like square one about feeling so embarrassed and like alone and misunderstood. And I went through the entire year of like not telling anyone again. And it was like, it was the worst. And so it was around Christmas time when I said, okay, like I'm so freaking sick of this. No one knows I have bipolar except my family. And, um, and so I decided to do Mind Cycle because I was like, I'm ready to just let everyone know, and I want to do this so that other people who are like feeling the same way I am, like don't have to feel alone, feel embarrassed, and to realize like they can do anything they want. Because me biking across Canada was like my ultimate life goal, like by far. And I was like, if I can do this, even if I try, but like the fact of like committing to it, I hope will like inspire me that I can do anything I set my mind to, no matter how I'm feeling, but also other people, and just get people talking and all that kind of stuff, and we raise money, and so um, that was my cycle. And so I just started off with a podcast actually with Ben, who we talked about, Ben Finelli, at Heroic Minds, and we recorded that podcast. I posted it on Facebook. I did like a newspaper article with a paper in Guelph, Ontario, and posted those at the same time, and like it just blew up. Like it literally just took off. Like all of a sudden, everyone knew like everything about what had happened to me over these past couple of years, like deeply in a meaningful way. It's like a podcast, you go deep, obviously, and it just like it literally changed my life. Like it literally, my friendships have like taken, have gone to such deeper level. Friendships that were kind of ruined or damaged like became kind of repaired because people really understood who I am. And not to say that there's a lot of like bad friendships, but there was one in particular, and yeah, so that's kind of why I did it. And then the rest was just the bike ride, and tons of speaking, and like just getting people talking. And it's just it literally, it sounds like cheesy sometimes, but it literally changed my life, like for the absolute best, because I just like, it just allowed me to like totally expose myself. And that didn't like solve all my issues. Like I still struggle a ton, like after I did that, but it was that piece of acceptance and like getting it out there and just saying, okay, this is me, which is an important piece of the process.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And it gets me thinking like, so you bike across Canada, like you're an inspired person, but who are three people in your life that inspire you?
Oh, when I was like really, really struggling, I would watch TED Talks, and I'd like feel inspired by people. But a month later, I'd watch that same TED Talk, and I wouldn't feel that same kind of inspiration. And so I don't know, like throughout this whole process, it's just been little chips and pieces of like chipping away in pieces of like being inspired by certain things and certain people, that like it wasn't, I don't think, ever one person or one thing that I did that really was what gave me like so much inspiration. I honestly don't like, not, no one comes to mind. It was just so many people, like small little pieces and people. Like Ben Fowling was a huge inspiration. But then I think about like, Blake Lotes in Edmonton, like she was an inspiration, and like other people, but there wasn't like certain people that were like literally like the absolute biggest. Like, yeah, never really thought about that.
That's a great answer, honestly, because like I ask all kinds of people who they look up to and who inspires them. And there's people that are listening to the podcast that might be thinking, well, who inspires me? And like, what if somebody was listening to the podcast and they're like, well, I can't think of anybody that inspires me. Like why can't I think of anybody? And then they finally hear a guest that was like, you know what? I don't know. And it makes it easier for more people to relate to each other
Mm,
because we're not all going to have the same answers to the same questions, and we're not all going to see the world in the same way, but it doesn't mean we're wrong. It means we have a different
mm,
perspective. And the better that I understand you, the better, like the more connection that we have, kind of thing. So my
mm.
next question, this one's going to be a tough one. You're going to have to think really, really hard. You've done some public speaking events. You've guested on interviews and podcasts and stuff like that. I want you to reflect on a time when you were talking about your experiences. I want you to reflect on the most emotional moment that you can remember, that you can recall when you were talking on one of these appearances.
I don't think I have never really gotten emotional on this, because when I do this stuff, it's not like it's revealing anything new. Like it's just, this is stuff that I feel and think about and like am aware about. Like obviously like new things come up in interviews or whatever, but this is not new like stuff for me. The most emotional I've ever been when it comes to this whole journey was when I finished my bike ride. And it was 4 months. I had Like it was so freaking hard mentally, like mental health wise, mentally staying motivated at times, not a lot actually, physically, but the mental, like that, it was such a trip, like such a journey. And when I finished, I I literally just broke down. I've never experienced such deep emotion. I was like bawling my eyes out. Like I got to Cape Spear, Newfoundland. It's the farthest you can go in Canada. Like it's where a lot of people finish their rides. And I got there, my entire family was there. My girlfriend's family, like friends, like there's like 25 of us, and they had signs and everything. And I just collapsed. And it was just because like it was just such an overwhelming experience. I can't even now I have a hard time describing it because I've never felt so like fulfilled and like proud of myself and so just yeah, proud, like just so proud. And and that was by far the most emotional I've ever been in terms of just like talking about this kind of stuff or like doing something with mental health. I mean, I've been really emotional like when I'm not feeling well. um but yeah, that was probably, you just can't really like, you just can't really prepare yourself for that kind of moment, that big of a moment. um Something that like meant so much, like that whole journey, the physical, dealing with the diagnosis of bipolar, telling my friends, my family, having breakdowns, going to emerge, all the therapy, all that kind of stuff. Not like that. It's not like that moment when I finished my ride, all that stuff would end forever, because it hasn't. But it just was like, I can do this. Like I can do anything. I can try anything, and it was just mind blowing. Yeah. So yeah, I don't really get emotional in like these types of interviews because yeah, it's just, I don't know.
There's
It's
nothing
not
wrong
the,
with that answer. Like you don't even have to
yeah,
justify it. At the end of the day,
yeah.
like what we're outlining really is that what makes you resilient is your ability to talk about it. Like where
Hmm.
a lot of people would feel like almost a pushback when they're being open about mental health, you've normalized it. It's a thing. It's part of your routine. Like
Yeah.
it makes you more resilient. And with that brings me to a segue. Have you ever seen 8 Mile, that Eminem movie?
Oh yeah.
So you know the part where he's doing like the rap battle, and like every single time he's facing off in the rap battle, like the only ammo the other guy has is cutting down like Marshall Mathers. Is basically like just like making him feel bad about himself. The only ammo or strong lyrics that they had was them cutting down Marshall Mathers. But then he caught on to that. So then he just was really open about himself and talked about all of his struggles and all of his shortcomings. And they were just like, what can they do now? So it's like from any kind of a standpoint, like if somebody's just having a bad day and they can be like, hey, I had a bad day. When I woke up, I had a lot of dark thoughts. I struggle with dark thoughts. Like when they're the first one to say it, it gives them more in their toolbox, really.
I agree. I
And
completely agree.
yeah, it's important to talk about that. Like we should all be some version of that part of Eminem in that like the demons don't have any weapons when you point them out, when you call them out. Now what? Now what are they gonna do? You know?
Exactly. Like he, like I never really thought about that scene before, but yeah, like he's like, this is what's happened, and I don't like, that doesn't define me, but that's happened, and I don't, I'm not like, that's not me. That's what's happened, and like, but like I'm here right now, and I don't give a crap if you're gonna say something about that because this is me right now,
Yeah.
and I've owned that. I've owned that. Yeah, that's what happened. Like he grew up in a trailer, like whatever, but like right now this is me, and like I'm here, and like I don't give a crap. Yeah,
Yep. And
it's
that's
awesome.
something that people can take into like self development. That's something people can take into like say they're trying to just PR their squat and it's like somebody's just giving them a hard time, or they don't believe in themselves. Like they can totally get that extra 10 pounds, but it's like they keep saying, I can't do this, I can't do this. And then if they just like call out their demons, like, I've been talking shit about myself day in and day out, saying that I can't do it. Now I'm just gonna like put that out on the wall and stop saying that. And I'm just gonna say that I can do it. Like just little like sharp self talk things
Mm.
like that makes such a difference.
Dude, the
And
self talk is so important.
yeah,
Oh my gosh.
I like that you talk about that moment of joy because that's something that I usually like highlight in these episodes. Like you talk about just how like emotional you felt at the end of that ride, having all the family around, and just like it was nothing that you had ever felt before. Do you ever find
Mm.
yourself reflecting on that, just like kind of using it as like a tool in your toolbox per se, and just like soaking in how you felt in that moment?
Yeah, like I think it comes up every now and then where I'm like, wow, like I'm so proud of like what's happened and like what, you know, I like made out of this whole journey of like struggles and what's happened. Yeah, I think it's and it just comes naturally. Like sometimes I just think about it and I'm like, oh my God, like this I'm very grateful and proud of myself and it just kind of gives me a little boost, I guess, when I think about it.
I think it's important to have things like that. Like I know some people they'll save like a text message, like say they had
Mm,
someone that they cared about that texted them and said, "Hey, I love you." They'll save that. Or maybe it's like a journal that they wrote themselves, but it was just a
mm,
really good, really happy journal writing and they'll save that somewhere. Or maybe it's like a
mm,
video that like maybe their kid made them a video and they just feel really happy with that video. Like just to have
mm,
these little memories, even the sad ones, like even just like a memorial video for someone that just completely changed your life for the better because like emotions are meant to be felt. I know I've said this a few times in my episodes of past, but it's just like when you're remembering the legacy of somebody, it's really important to lean into that because they made you
mm.
who you are. If you stray away from that, if you're like, "Oh, well, but they're gone," like that's not going to empower you nearly as much as like really just freaking loving that they were a part of your life, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree.
So now in your day to day, like what do you do? Like I know that you're an ambassador for mental health, but I don't know what your day to day is. Like what's a Monday for you?
Well, now I actually work for an organization called Jack.org, and they're a national youth mental health charity. Um, I think they're like the most incredible organization in Canada, in my opinion, because the work that they do is just incredible. Essentially, what Jack.org is like a network of about like 3,000 young people in every province and territory, literally every single part of Canada. And we work with them and like empower them and train them to like create the change to, you know, our kind of slogan is like address barriers to positive mental health in their communities. So it's the work is just incredible. Kind of main pieces are we train young people to become mental health speakers and deliver talks to schools across Canada. Like like we reach about 100,000 people every year through the audience. We have Jack chapters, which are like student-led groups or clubs, like all across Canada. There's um, almost 300 chapters across Canada right now that are working in their communities, on campus, in their schools to address those kind of barriers to positive mental health and create an initiative to change that. And then we have summits, Jack summits, which is when we actually bring all these students together for like workshops, training, keynote speakers, whatever, to educate them to go back to their communities and address those problems. And so I'm incredibly proud of like working there and the work that we do. Um, for me, my work is more on the kind of corporate like partnership side, um, and really just kind of like building, partnerships to get like funding or like just like any sort of way that companies can support us that like makes sense. Um, so honestly, I feel like I have the dream job because I like had a business background. I'm doing a business focus role for mental health. I do public speaking still, working with amazing people, and so that's kind of my week. And it's just I couldn't be happier, to be honest.
That's such a cool gig. Like what got you started with it? Who did you meet that got you that job kind of thing?
Um, So after my bike ride, I started working for the Canadian Mental Health Association, and over time, I just realized that it wasn't like this. It wasn't like the place for me. It's an amazing organization, but it just wasn't where I wanted to be. And so I reached out to a guy named Jesse Heyman, who's the VP of Jack.org, and we had coffee, and he was telling me about his kind of approach to fundraising, communications, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I need to work for this guy. Like I'm so inspired by this guy. And so like a couple months later, I met with him and the founder of Jack.org, and was like, I don't care what I do. Like, I want to work here. I'll take Jesse's notes and meetings. Like, I don't care. I literally just want to learn from him and be a part of this organization. And they just saw like how passionate I was. And so, yeah, a couple months later, a job came up and I interviewed and got the job. So that was in June. So it's been awesome, extremely challenging, but just an incredible job.
What's sort of like the origin story of Jack.org, or what do you know about the startup of it?
Yeah, no, it's a really powerful story. So our founder Eric Windler and his wife Sandra Hannington, they're a Toronto family, 3 kids. They sent their son Jack off to university at Queen's University, and just nothing was there was no signs of anything. And then the second semester of his first year, they got the call from the police in Kingston that Jack had taken his life, and so it was just absolutely like earth shattering for the family, the community, the school, all that kind of stuff. And so Eric, the father, just kind of started talking to people like, did anyone see any signs of this happening? And a few people at Queens were like kind of saying that Jack had been going to school for a long time, like to campus or to classes for a long time, but they didn't really know what to say or how to approach it. And then there was also the kind of the assumption that like Jack may have not known where to go or like what to do about his struggles. And so with those kind of learnings, Eric really just set out to make sure that every single young person knew how to support themselves and how to get help and how to support other people in their lives. And he started doing talks all across Canada, talking to young people. And then he realized, like, is this the best for a 50-year-old man to be speaking to high school, university students about mental health? Or is it going to be better if these messages come from young people and like really using like a peer-to-peer model? And so that's really where Jack.org took form. So that was 10 years ago. And when it started, and then it just evolved into this huge like youth to youth network. And so all of our talks, all of our young speakers deliver the talks, all the chapters, all the summits, it's just all young people working with young people, kind of on that peer-to-peer framework. And it's proven to be really, really effective, much more effective than a psychiatrist coming to speak to a school, or like an adult going to speak to a school, or whatever. So I mean, we have lots of work to do, but I think we're all like very, very proud of what's happened. And I think this is an important piece. So like we've been working so hard on like educating people about mental health, and they kind of break down the stigma, getting people comfortable like reaching out for help. And we've done a really good job with that as a country. A good job. And so what's happened is, if you kind of think of like this kind of the impact that's having, it's a nice kind of trajectory right now. Like there's a lot more people getting comfortable reaching out for help, and so there's more people reaching out for help. But the actual services for mental health, that growth, seeing counselors, doctors, psychiatrists isn't growing as fast. So the awareness and comfort of reaching out for help is increasing fast, but the amount of resources is not growing at that same rate. And so now the amount of people waiting for mental health resources is bigger than ever, because there's so many more people that are reaching out for help, but the services aren't keeping up. And so I wouldn't say it's gotten worse, but there's just more people. And so right now, a big piece of the work that we're trying to do is growing the amount of resources and services for people to get help, to kind of accommodate that growth in people who are waiting. That's kind of the big issue right now.
Is providing services something that falls under the Jack.org umbrella? Like, do you guys sponsor services for
No,
people? No?
no, we're yeah. So there's kind of like a couple of like big pieces of like mental health work. There's like advocacy for like kind of trying to like push for change and like policies and with like the government or whatever. There's education, which is like educating people about mental health, which we've really done a good job with. And then there's the actual like mental health like services. And so we don't go into the services, like we don't have like doctors or counselors within Jack.org. It's really about kind of educating, creating a movement so that those other changes can happen. And we're trying to figure out where we want to go next, but it's very likely to not be services.
Yeah. And like, I mean, the work that you're doing, like it's so important because that's like shining a light for people to sort of know what direction to go. And then there are so many services that like it's a charity based thing where you can walk in and you can get counseling, and because it's like fundraised for, you don't have to pay. So
Mm,
there are things out there, and it's just a matter of like spreading the word about these small initiatives that are here and there and everywhere, and hoping that it just continues to get better. It's basically we got to have a whole lot of people that are doing some positive self-talk to help create these services and create these big ideas to support each other and connect better, you know?
yeah, I agree. Like so people are reaching out for help, but like phone lines, like support lines or like counselors on campus, they're full,
Yeah.
and so there's a huge wait list. And so now like maybe a counselor or a, like mental health services on campus at a college or university, they can only accept like 100 students a month or something, but there's another 100 waiting. And so what are those people doing? What are those students doing? And that's when bad things can happen, and it's a matter of like making sure those people have somewhere to go as well, not just like the emergency room, which is pretty much like one of the only like guaranteed ways to get help. But it's not like a sustainable option. Like it's kind of like a crisis
Yeah.
option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the last 7 days, what's like the most joy that you've felt? Like, what were you doing? What time of day was it? What day of the week was it?
Um, yeah, so Jack.org held like a polar bear dip yesterday in Toronto and across the country. There was like almost 600 people that did it across the country, and we raised like 150,000. And so yesterday there was about 300 people in the Toronto one, and there was like tons of people on the beach, and I had about like 15 like friends and family like on my team doing it. And I looked around. I'm like we're literally all here for youth mental health. Like it's like people are here to support mental health, and the fact that my cousins are coming, my friends are coming, my family is coming to be a part of this. I just like looked around. I was like, this is just so great. Like I'm so happy that like everyone's comfortable being here and like talking about it. And maybe not like fully comfortable talking about it, but they're here, and like that just means they're aware and somewhat accepting of mental health and supporting mental health. So I was just really happy yesterday, just looking around. I was very proud of the people in my lives and the organization. And it was just a really nice feeling.
Yeah, I like that answer. So we're gonna segue to the very last question. This is the question that I ask all of my guests, and it's if you could give one piece of advice on how to live your life in the most authentic way to the fullest, what would that piece of advice be?
Um, I would say just like take the time to like really just constantly trying to like work at like being comfortable with yourself and who you are, and like trying to love yourself and because I think, as I said earlier, like if you do that work on yourself and keep working and keep working and keep working and realize that it's not just something that's gonna switch on and last forever, it's like constantly putting that work in, then I think so many like other things are gonna fall into place because you are confident and comfortable with who you are, and kind of where you're going and whatever. It's just like putting that work on yourself. And yeah, like I wish I had been doing this for like years, just like that kind of positive self-talk. Um, and yeah, well, I think that is, and just to kind of expand, like one thing in addition to that is like, it's, I think instinctually, like we have like very negative self-talk for some reason. And, um, and it just happens, it just happens. And so we're constantly hearing this negative self-talk so much that I really start to believe it. But now it's like, okay, I want to give myself positive self-talk more than I hear that stuff. So I start hearing those messages more, and I start believing that. But unfortunately, the positive self-talk doesn't just happen. I mean, it happens when you get compliments and you have achievements or whatever. But like when you're not doing well, or you're not getting those kind of that reinforcement, really, really putting the time into like saying or like believing that positive self-talk, and try to push away the negative. Yeah, I think that's it. It's like putting in the work to love yourself and feel comfortable with yourself, and realizing that you're good enough, and you're great, and you're not small, you're big. And yeah.
That's great advice. So thank you again for joining me today.
Yep, that sounds great, man. It's nice chatting.
I just wanted to say a few things to close this off. Recently, they released the nomination results from YEG Fitness, so that's Edmonton's fitness magazine, who is also a sponsor of this podcast. Gathered the nominations for all of everybody's favorite things, businesses, professionals, gyms in the city. And because of the support of my clients, my friends, my family, my Lifestyle Chase listeners, I am really proud to announce that I got chosen as one of the top 5 favorite personal trainers in the city of Edmonton, and one of the top 5 favorite community supporters. And my gym that I run my business out of, Evolve Strength, was one of the top 5 gyms. So, thank you for the support. If you would like to help the Lifestyle Chase grow, if you could go to iTunes and give a rating, give a review. Reviews always help. And listen to a few more episodes than you would normally listen to. A lot of people will pop in for one of my guests, and they're like, okay, I knew who that was. That was really neat. But my challenge to you is to find a guest that you're like, I don't know who that person is, and listen to it. And yes, as I've evolved, I think I've gotten better at asking questions, but there's no reason to not listen to one of the earlier episodes. Like, we're talking like, go for like an episode 22, 24, 31. We're really piling on the content here, having a lot of conversations with a lot of people from all over. So see what you can learn from somebody else today. Have yourself a very good day. Think about what you're grateful for. Thank you for listening.